No, I don't see a countdown. It's the
Welcome,
red light
ladies and
says
gentlemen.
recording.
Here we are with Don the Bee Man, and Don's got a subject he'd like to talk about tonight before we get going. If you have any questions, you can raise your hand with the interact icon up at the top to the right. It looks like a shadow, a white shadow of a person. If you click that, left click it, and hit raise hand, we'll know you have a question, and Don will be able to answer it. We'll get to you. Again, welcome, and Don, it's all yours.
Okay, we're going to talk about getting beehives and making a decision if this is your hobby or if you want to go into business. And the first thing I try to tell people is look at the hives before you go in. If you're going to do honey, then make sure you're able to lift the boxes. The standard out there is 10 frame stuff. I suggest using 8 frame, or if you have back problems, 5 frame. And I'll tell you right up front, there's more money in making bees, and there's such a shortage out there. You will make some honey, but you're not going to go into this and make tons of honey and make a lot of nukes. And we have at least one of my students, maybe 2 of them tonight, that took classes from me about a year or 12 months ago and are actually selling bees and are successful. And if you can't sell them, then I market them for my students. I'm not promoting my classes, but one advantage of taking classes from me and then buying some stock from me, that you can say the Fat Bee Man has trained me, and I have his stock, and you can see that it is gentle. One of my students is currently actually the town is Wimberley, Texas. It's south of Austin. And they've got a lot of Africanized bees out there. And you got to wear 2 bee suits to work them. He come here and he buys bees from me, takes them back there, and he sells them and gets $3.50 for the nuke. And he's working them out there with his shorts. So I believe if you get bees, get good temperament, whether you get them from me, get them from anybody. Go there, check the person out you're buying the bees. If you go out there and you find a beekeeper coming out to greet you and to get you a nuke or a package, he's got a full bee suit on, is all taped up, and he can't work his own bees. It might be a little indication that if you're a novice beekeeper, have never opened a beehive, that you might have a problem. I stress to a lot of my students, if you feel fear, if you need a bee suit, put it on. Stand in the background until you get the feeling of bees flying around you. The majority of my students don't even wear a bee suit the first or second time they come here. And then doing the 5 frame nukes and building them yourself is one way to save your money and keep your overhead down. I have not advertised at all, and I stay basically covered up. And I sell nukes and queens for my students. And I also, when I get calls, I refer a lot of business to them. So if anybody wants to question any of that or have a question about that, and currently I sell wax, and I'm not trying to be in competition with anybody else. If you want to buy my wax, I don't use chemical. If I have some extra, I get $20 a pound for my wax. It's a lemon yellow. It's no chemical at all. It's cosmetic grade. My propolis, I sell that $60 a pound. And I sell my queens for $25 live. If they're dead, I teach you how to make queen lure, and I get $40 for a dead queen. And you use it for a queen lure in the springtime. And it's a lot better than using synthetics. So we probably just skip around a little bit here, but let's take some questions about how that you are planning on getting into business or sidelining or wanting to do honey.
Well, Don, Ed actually has a question. He wants to know, and we covered this once, but I'm still foggy on it too. What is a queen bank, and what is the purpose of it?
Most of the time, a queen bank is used with large queen producers. They're running a large payroll, and as the season starts to wind down, they're collecting their queens. They're putting them in a queen cage, and they're putting several hundred in a box, which is actually a beehive, and they're using a queen excluder below so that the queen from the bottom of the queen right hive don't come up. But there's still no guarantee that that don't happen. Sometimes you get some bees in there that will kill some of those queens. I don't prefer to do it myself. I sell them as fast as I get them, and I never really bank them myself. Your microphone went dead. You unplugged it again.
I'm infamous for my mute button. I turn it off just so I don't interrupt. But Ed has a follow up. Is there a certain length of time that they can be kept if you're banking queens?
Most of your commercial people bank in the fall, and they have them ready to go out the line first thing in the spring. So most of them are having queens ready in March or April. Some of them down in Florida probably have them ready the 1st of March. But you know, it's not the best queen to get. The longer that queen stops laying, the more erratic she's going to lay. It might take her a week to 3 weeks to straighten out the lace good size patterns again.
Alrighty. Well, I'm going to throw it open to questions, guys. I'm going to unmute your, if I can remember how to do that. There we go. Q&A
All
mode.
attendees are muted and may unmute themselves by pressing *6.
You are now unmuted, but you have to unmute yourself. If you have a question about how you're going to start, Joe, looks like Joe's coming up here. Where do you want to start? Myself, I am still kind of just scratching my head about, do I want to specialize in bees? Do I want to have bees as one part of a farming operation where I kind of supply fruits and vegetables that are high end to these restaurants. I have some land in Phoenix and Vegas, and I'm thinking about, well, it could just be one more product, or maybe I'll just go into the bee business. Not really sure, but I want to keep a couple hives, get going, Don. You know how it is, and make my mistakes on a small scale, a cheap scale, and go from there. I really don't know what direction I need to go because I'm still ignorant. I mean, you can say, oh, I want to do honey, but if you don't know that there's another product out there or another way to do it. Don, you mentioned that, and I used to work in the medical industry, the medical manufacturing industry, and you worked for Estee Lauder, which was owned by a big company, Eli Lilly. And they were buying organic beeswax. Now, this is back in the 80s for their makeup lines because they were already beginning to see people have skin reactions to bees that had a lot of filthy wax, and some of this stuff, a simple trace amount is enough to, if you're sensitive, to make you break out. Look at these people that have peanut allergies. So any thoughts on that, Don? Is that a viable market? Or
the market on beeswax, good chemical free, lemon yellow, like I said, I get $20 a pound. There's people that have 2 or 3 hives and they get into making candles. To me, that is a kind of a waste of money. I mean, you could do a paraffin candle with a little bit of beeswax. It'll smell like beeswax, and you could actually make, a better product that way. The propolis, the medical field is opening up on that. That's why that stuff is, they're using it for cancer research. There's a lot of stuff going on. I got one fellow that buys it. He does tinctures for cough syrup, lips balms, and salves for burns and ointments. The market is out there. Once you get your web page up, figure out which way you want to go. If you're going to go with products of the hive, you're going to have to sell volumes and volumes of it to make a living. But you can take a half a dozen hives, and in a short period of time feeding them, you got buku amount of nukes that you could sell. The market is a lot higher, and if you're not selling the nukes as fast, they're going to make honey as surplus. So you will have some honey, but your primary thing is selling bees or doing pollination. Pollination is a specialized thing on a small scale, not big truckers, but if you're going to pollinate organic farms. And you get a good premium for it. And you don't need a big hive. You need a single story hive or a 5-frame nuke. Some of the research places, the states that do research on vegetables, they prefer a 5-frame box because a lot of women work there. They carry them from one unit to the next, and they put them in like a greenhouse. I don't really like to do that. In fact, when I do that, I get $50 for a short period rental with a $50 deposit. And the understanding is they get their deposit back if they bring those bees back in the same condition. But if you stop and think about it, they're pollinating in a greenhouse, and you're going to have a 60% kill off. Bees fly up against the glass, and people don't think about that. They look at, oh, I'm going to make all this money pollinating, but the bees are in bad shape. Even cucumbers, watermelons, cantaloupes, they say you can have a lot of honey on that. I ain't seen it yet. You're doing them a favor, so you got to charge for your service. And if you're not charging, you're going to start backing up. The bee supply house is not giving free materials away.
Right. Don actually mentioned that we were talking a while ago, and people are going to come to you and say, well, $75 to pollinate, per hive or whatever, and it's like, well, if you can find somebody cheaper, well, Don, tell them real quick what the guy told you about that, if you remember that
I
story.
had a fellow that wanted pollinate, and his previous pollinator quit on him. And he wanted some hives for his cantaloupes and his watermelons. And he asked me what I'd charge. I said $75 a hive. And usually cantaloupes or watermelons, it's a 2.5 to 3 week period. He says, oh my God, that's a lot of money. He said, I only been paying 45. So I asked the man who pollinated for me. He mentioned the man's name in the next county. And he said, he only charged me 45. And I said, well, why don't you call him back? And the man told him, he says, I can't make money at $45. So I guess he expects I should bring him over there and lose money to pollinate his crop. So people that need pollination need your bees. You don't need a place to put them just to have a place to set them down.
Right, and that's the difference, Don, between a hobbyist and a commercial beekeeper, somebody who's looking to make a living or a partial living or whatever, versus, hey, I just love having bees, and I'm here because I want to learn the whole spectrum, everything from 2 hives to the whole thing, and then make an informed decision. And that's what the chat's kind of about too, is just getting enough information to be able to make an informed decision.
Well, I'm basically giving advice and kind of telling you where I've made my mistakes, where I've lost, and where I can gain. And when you're just getting started and you don't know which way you want to go, I would say find a beekeeper close by and get even an empty box. Get a 10-frame single-story box, put 2 8-inch blocks in it. Get an 8-frame, put 2 6-inch blocks in it, and then get a 5-frame box and put a 4-inch block in it, and then lift them up one to the other. Now that's going to give you a rough idea of what you're going to be handling. Now, you tell me you want to go into business for honey, then multiply that about 500-600 times you're lifting that box up in a day's time. That's why a lot of times I'm out there in the hot sun, and if we're doing a video, you'll hear me say, that darn honey's in the way again. You've got to lift a box of honey off to get to where the money's at. The money is in the brood. So when you're making your splits, that's where your money's at. And for making money in honey, you've got to have a lot of boxes, a lot of help, and then you also have a liability. Where selling bees, you have no liability. You come buy bees from anybody, you know they got a stinger. But if you start out doing honey and you build up to 400, 500, 600 hives, and you've got these fancy labels on all your jars, and they're plastered all over the county and the next state, and the guy sees you're successful. He buys you one jar. Even if he don't even eat your honey, he calls you up and he says, I'm at the hospital. They're pumping my stomach out. You better get a hold of your lawyer. Even if it's not your honey, cost you a minimum $2,000 to get represented. Now that's called liability. If you're going to sell honey, you better carry at least $1 million liability policy. On the other hand, you sell nukes, the guy gets stung, that's his problem. He mishandled the bees. So there's different ways to look at it. You know, if you don't want to get into business and you just want a couple hives, then I suggest get 2 hives. Never buy 1 hive to go into beekeeping, because if you're new, you don't know what you're looking at. If the bees are bringing pollen in or if they're not bringing pollen. But if you have 2 and the one has got all that yellow pollen on their legs, the other one doesn't have a thing and it's kind of lethargic sitting on a landing board, the other one's just working like crazy, that's an indication to go in the hive and see if you have a problem. Could have a dead queen, you know, you could have some other problems. So that's what I'm basically doing, giving you kind of a heads up, a little preview of what's ahead for you.
Sorry about that, Don. Somebody's having a little problem here, and I was just helping them out. You know, I think that's a really good point in our society with our incredible amount of lawsuits and yeah, it's just, and having worked in the medical industry, you know, building products and whatnot, you save somebody's life and then they turn around and try to take you for every dime that they can. It's really crazy. And granted, you know, medical companies, they run the gamut from shysters all the way up to saints, you know, with most of them probably in the middle, just like everything else. Let's see. Somebody, oh, here it is. Ed mentioned he wants you to repeat. Did you say there's beeswax being made into a tincture for cough syrup, or did you say propolis?
Propolis. Beeswax can be made into salves. It can be made into lip balms. It has other ingredients. I'm not into that there, which is a good point. People come up and they try to do too much. Be successful at one thing or 2 things. Don't be jack of all trades and master of none. If you're good at making bees, then make bees, sell nukes. If you like to sell bees and honey, then do half and half. But the money is going to be in your education, teaching other beekeepers, and selling bees, because you got to have bees to start with. And the shortage is getting worse all the time.
Right. And Don, how long do you see that going on? I mean, because see, I worry about, well, gee, if there's a shortage, you know, market supplies people are gonna get into raising bees. But from what you're telling me, for a long time, it looks like it's going to be a long time before there's enough bees for everybody.
Well, there's not going to be an overabundance. Last year, before California was on fire, they reported almost 7 million hives short for pollinating the whole state. Now, they've got a tremendous amount of fire over there burning everything up. The East Coast is flooded out. I have a lot of customers myself in South Carolina, in the area where they got 17 inches of water. I know darn well there's hives floating down. They got cars, everything else floating down. So those people are going to get back into the bees. They have to have bees. So there's not going to be a shortage. And I could say turn out 20 commercial beekeepers within a half a mile of me, and it's not going to hurt the business one bit. I have students probably 30 minutes one way and 45 minutes another way, and probably 15 minutes in another way north of me. We're all doing good. I mean, you cannot supply enough bees. There's Steve.
So that's a good point. Yeah, Steve is in. Joe has a question real quick if you want to answer that, and then you can introduce
Okay.
Steve. You want to introduce him right now, or?
All right. This is Steve, and Steve and his wife come to me to learn beekeeping about a year ago, and they really took to it really good. His wife was out in the hives working them, no veil, no gloves, probably within about 5, 6 times. We've got videos of her running the machinery, making queen cages. I mean, this is something that husband, wife, or the father, son, father, daughter can work together and build a business up with it. And the bees are as gentle as you see in the videos. I mean, there's no editing out of people running around the yard with their hands blowing around everywhere. Catch your mic off again. Jeff, you got to unmute your mic.
That's funny, Steve. I'm sorry. I'm sitting here telling you, hey, sounds like your wife just walked in. Welcome to the Bee Chat. I get doing too many things at once, trying to help folks. Les he's got a better connection now. We had somebody having some technical issues. Welcome, Steve. Nice to meet you.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Yeah.
Let Kimberly get her eye in there too.
Oh, she just got home from work, so she's already taking it easy. So, but anyways, I took Don's bee class, his commercial bee class, and I'll tell you what, it put me at least 10 years ahead of just going to a bee meeting where I live in my county. And I went from having 2 hives my first year, and I got up to 56 hives this year. And I took the class and went to Don's just about every Saturday for probably about 4 months straight. Took a week's vacation, went there every day on that week's vacation, drove over there, and just the wealth of knowledge I learned from Don, just little stuff you don't think about. I mean, it's the knowledge he gives you versus trying to learn it at a bee meeting or learn it from another beekeeper doesn't want to share it with you because they don't want you to know what they know. So you can't do what they do. I mean, I'm so thankful to, and I know there's another gentleman, James, and several people that Don has trained. And, every time I go over there, there's so much he tells you, you can't retain it all. So I keep going back and oh yeah, he told me that more, but I forgot it, so it's fun.
Well, Steve, thank you so much. That's what everybody here is all these folks in this chat you see here signed up because they want to learn from Don. They want to be mentored by him. Steve, I'm gonna mute you just because there's a little bit of background noise. Don't think I'm being mean. There we go. I lost your camera too. I'll fix that. Don't worry. But we're all here because we want to be mentored by Don. We want to learn from Don. We want to hear the things that he can't really show except via person to person. And that's why. Yeah. Ed says, like Steve said, I learned so much from his chats and videos. But now it's a step up, and you can actually go, Don, what does this mean? What is this thing, or what is this? Why are the bees doing this, or that kind of thing? Joe, you got a question? Go ahead and unmute your line and ask it.
Yeah, Don. Hey, I got a couple of late splits that I got going on in 5-frame nudes, and various reasons, but they only got queen right last week, and they're a little shy on supplies for the winter, and it's cold here. It's going to get down 28 tonight. Can I start feeding the honey right now without really getting the boost?
I think if you have the extra brood, I believe I'd take a frame of brood that has quite a bit of honey on it and brood and stick it in there to give it a little bit of a boost. That way you have a better chance to go with it. Okay, making late splits is always a risk.
Yeah, I've got a couple 8 frames that's double deep, so I can grab plenty of brood to put in. That'd be a better way to go, you think?
Yeah, yeah. Boost it up a little bit.
Okay, thank you.
But I hope I have probably 20 some students just from Georgia here. I'm hoping that quite a few come in tonight and they can relate to the amount of people from other states that come here and they see people taking classes from me and in 6 months getting their money back basically as far as learning and selling the bees. I put myself available out there from the time they get here, and there's a lot of stuff that I probably forgot. And some student will say something, it jogs my mind, and my little file cabinet in my brain opens up, and I'll pull out that file and let them know what's going on. And I think that's the beauty of the way I teach because you buy these videos, you buy these books, and you have a problem. You can't get to the page 101 or 107 and ask that page or back that video up and find your problem. And this chat that we're doing now, each person is going to have some individual problem that we can answer or hopefully answer and help them out. Where you can't do that with CDs. Um, and that's my main focus is to make better beekeepers out of everybody. If you just took 10% of what I put out there, you will be successful. I had one student last summer come here the first time and probably come 4 or 5 times, and he made the remark that a lot of places where he's been, bee clubs and stuff, it's like a garden hose of information with a little trickle coming out. And he says, I come up here and it's like a damn fire hose. It drowns you in a few minutes. So, I mean, I guess I put too much information out too fast and people get overwhelmed pretty quick from the amount of knowledge and information. They don't have time to digest it piece by piece. But every bit of it will work.
Right, and one of the beauties of the system here, Don, is if they go away for a week, they go on vacation, and then they come back, or they have this question, they can come back every Saturday. Here it is, come ask Don. Or the other thing I want to make sure that everybody is aware of, the chat will support both your video, your pictures, your files. You can upload them to the chat. Now that assumes you're in front of a computer. I see we have 3 phone callers here tonight. If you're in front of a PC or I'm sure a Mac, there's a button where it talks about more, and I can help you with that. We can do a test meeting beforehand. You can submit the material to donsbeechat@gmail.com, and I'll put it up here. And if you got a picture or a video, we can stream it right here. Everybody can see it and learn. Don will analyze it and learn from. We'll all learn from it. So don't hesitate to do that. Looks like Les has a question from Missouri. In the spring, we pour the feed to the hive we want to make cells. So I guess it looks like Les is going the path you're telling him to go down. It looks like he's going towards. He wants to make queens. Is it important to push heavy feed to several hives to make drones from other bloodlines? I had trouble with queens coming back when done like in early April. So apparently he's not getting the drones. He's getting a bunch of drone comb because the queen wasn't mated probably.
Well, weather has a major factor in it, but on a small scale, what a person needs to do is buy several queens from several different people to bring in a little new genetics, get a little variation in there. If one problem that most people have is they go out and they buy 10 packages from any supplier, and they take those 10 packages and they breed them. And they breed them basically brother to sister in there. And then pretty soon, 3rd to 4th generation, you got some bees that are really aggressive. And it's a different story now if you have in an area where you got another beekeeper half a mile or a quarter of a mile away, you're going to get some of his drones. You've got to get even here, what I'm doing is I'm bringing in new bloodline all the time. If you don't, you're going to get inbreeding. That's one trick. It's hard to teach genetic breeding. I didn't take a course on it. I just grew up on a farm, and I seen firsthand if you got a bull and you breed that bull to the cow and then the calf and then that calf's calf, you have problems, and that's what's happening in beekeeping. You could take a hive, and if the hive is very gentle, you go out there one day and it's awful mean. That's not usually genetics. That could be a skunk. It could be a little gecko, a lizard. It could be something annoying the bees. So don't jump to conclusions. You know, a lot of people come here. A good percentage come here with problems to buy new queens because they have a problem. And I'll talk to them and ask them questions. And a lot of times it's just a simple thing that they're doing to the hive. They don't really need a queen. I've had people say that is a queen out of hell and it just eats me up, chased me to the house. I've told many of them, take that queen with one frame of brood, put it in a nuke box, put 4 new frames of foundation, and put it off to itself. Put a new queen in the hive you pull that one out of. And then if you go back to where that mean queen was and all them bees, 2 to 3 weeks, genetics is completely changed. And what's happened is you've got more room for her to lay. The hive got crowded. There's other things come into it, but do the simple thing first. Don't get in there with a hatchet and off with the head. You know, all these weird things people do. Think things out first.
Right.
Don't get in there radical.
Right. That's a really good point. Anybody else have a question for Don? And all you have to do is unmute yourself, and you can ask the question. Don,
hey Don, this is
okay. Go ahead. Sorry.
This is Todd Prince on the line from North Carolina. One question for you in reference to winter time. Any thoughts to quilt boxes? I've heard several people speak of those in the past and at bee meetings and things of that nature. Have you had any experience with it, and do you think that it's worthwhile to look at trying to use those as a means of keeping the moisture out of the hive?
Well, I personally don't use them. I haven't used them. I've heard things about them. Moisture in the hive is one thing, and that's what you just brought up. And if you're putting a quilt in there, some people put sawdust in there, some people put shavings in there. And what that's going to do is it's going to act like a sponge. So now you concentrate more moisture in there. It would make more sense to put a hive top feeder on there, drill you a 1-inch hole, put some hardware cloth on it, and now you've got positive ventilation. You're going to eliminate your moisture problem. As far as all these new things people come out with, always go back to basics. Think about a tree. They don't have metal in that tree on the roof. They don't have a quilt in there. They don't have queen excluders. They don't have screen bottom boards. Why is the bees living? Because there's no beekeepers messing with them. So keep it as simple as possible and you'll have healthier bees.
Does that answer your question, sir?
I think so.
Okay, great. Well, Don Hoover has a question. Don, if you'll unmute your microphone, you should be able to ask it.
I don't know if you can hear me.
Your
Question.
There you go. We can hear you.
Question I have has been pretty well covered, I think, at this point. I was in terms of putting a quilt box in, put shredded paper on top of it. This is we get down to many times down in the teens. For wintering here, and feeding is another thing that I wonder about. Should I fed 2 boxes of bees clear through summer? We did not have a good nectar flow here, and it was passer anyway. And so I've taken a little bit. I'm going to probably feed back in the spring, or if that's the thing to do.
Well, you're kind of breaking up, but I'll give you my point of view as far as the insulation, wrapping hives. I grew up in Ohio, so I'm familiar with really cold weather. And I find the least amount of stuff that you do to the hive, the better off you are. Your biggest thing in your hive is moisture. And no matter where you're living, and my philosophy is I do not feed sugar water from November to February because there's too much moisture going in a hive. And if you got your wood hive there, it's going to absorb a certain amount of that vapor there. And then you're making yourself a refrigerator. If you got to feed your bees, I suggest November through February, feed back honey and don't reduce it with water. When the minute you put water with honey, you're going to cause it to ferment. Feed it back in the natural state. If you don't have honey, then put a newspaper across the top bars. Put you 2 to 4 cups of just plain dry sugar, and the moisture from those bees will dampen it enough. They'll come up, and it's a starvation preventative is basically all it is. My main thing to tell people, whether they live clear up in Wisconsin or Maine, I have people from everywhere. Ask similar questions. They want to wrap their hive. Get your hive to where the bottom board is at least knee high. That helps to knock down a lot of that moisture coming up in the hive. I don't run screen bottom boards. That's just like opening the door and giving all your bees pneumonia, as far as I'm concerned. Wrapping hives, facing them a certain direction. I have never seen a situation where I've done it. I know there's people that do it. Your biggest thing is snow country. The bees can't breathe. The entrances get full of snow. So that's another reason to keep them up at least knee high and then go out and check them if you've got snow for a while. Make sure that the bees can clean out the dead bees inside. Now, some people like to use a turkey feather to stick it in the reduced entrance on your beehive. Most people are going to run 3 inches to 4 inches wide, 3/8 of an inch high, and they'll reach in with a turkey feather and they'll kind of pull back all the dead bees that build up in there. That's the only problem I see as far as bee losses. The entrance gets clogged up and the bees can't breathe.
But Don, if you've got the ventilation holes in your supers and that they go on up to the top, that will help a lot, right?
Right. But there's a lot of people, when you tell them to drill their box out, they'll throw their hands up. They don't want to do this. They don't want to do that. So you can lead the horse to water, but you can't make it drink.
Yeah, and I'm in North Dakota, so that is my greatest fear, Don, is that I'm going to freeze my bees out. You know, well, I don't have any bees yet, but 2016, I'm putting a lot of money into that, and you know, I don't want it to end in complete loss. So I'm kind of afraid, but I'm gonna drill my hives. I'll let y'all know in a year, guys, how it works.
Talk to a lot of people that has beehives. They'll tell you how much propolising they do. Now, there's a certain amount of people like to sleep with a window partly open in the wintertime. And common sense is when they get too cold, they get out of bed, they close the window. Now, if you got screens on the ventilation holes, I will guarantee you those bees will propolize that hole shut if there's too much. I have run across probably 30 years ago or more, when I lived in Ohio, I forgot to put entrance reducers in some of my hives. And those was 10 frame hives. And you know, the bees actually propolized the hole shut, and they reduced it down to about 3 inches wide. And it was just one mass of propolis. And that's where I've learned about the bees will take care of themselves. And I also seen where a mouse had got in a hive, and they actually built a mound of propolis over the top of that mouse to encase it in propolis to where it don't decompose. Bees are more hygienic than what people think they are.
Right. On the same line of when you mentioned about putting a hive top feeder on with some holes in it for ventilation, Willie Bryant, which welcome Mr. Davis, by the way, I talked to him earlier by email, is asking, do you leave the hive top feeder on year round for ventilation purposes, I assume?
Yep. We started in just the last year, we was running a lot of hive top feeders, and now we are drilling a 1-inch hole, and we're putting the screen wire on the inside. And I don't know if I discussed that very much. When you drill the boxes, your supers and your hive boxes, we put the hardware cloth on the outside. And that is so that you don't catch your frames pulling it up on the screen wire. But the hive top feeder, we put it inside. So when you reach your hand up to lift the lid up, you don't get your fingernail, under that hardware cloth. It's just a safety thing. But you can actually put water in there in the summertime, and it cools, and you'll actually make more honey. There's good positive ventilation.
Right.
You don't have that mildew or that mold in there.
I didn't think about the water thing because I have land in Arizona, and my goal is to go back there, God willing, eventually. It gets unbelievably hot, Don. I mean, it's 118, in the summertime, and then it'll go all the way down to 60 degrees. A thunderstorm will blow in, and then it's back up to 118 and 90% humidity, in the afternoon. So that's a very good point.
That there alone is one reason to put a hive top feeder. And I'm going to explain it to you in the simplest forms. You've got a lake right there. Now, the bees have to fly out, go over to that lake. There's 20 to 30%. They're going back and forth hauling water. If you want to make more honey, fill your hive top feeder up with water. Now they use that water as air conditioning, cool the hive. All the young bees can climb up, get into the feeder, get a drink. Now, when you stop and think about it, every bee going in and out now, every single one is hauling nectar. You'll actually make about a gallon more honey because they're not wasting time hauling water. Sometimes it's the simplest things.
Well, Don Hoover, did you have another question, sir?
Yeah, one more, I think. I built about a 5-inch high quilt, so in the middle of it, a screen is put in, and so I could put sugar cakes underneath on top of the frames, and then put on top of that wire, put maybe some shredded paper to absorb some of that moisture, and it is, and it's also for ventilation. Will that work?
I don't think I would do it because shredded up paper is going to act like a sponge. Once it gets damp, now you've got a sponge up there radiating out all that moisture. I would keep it as simple as possible. I don't run inner covers. The only thing I have is the hive box there with a hive top feeder. That acts as the inner cover. If you have a problem where you need additional ventilation, you could slide your lid forward a little bit or put thumbtacks under the corners, and that raises it up enough. You don't have to worry about robbing because the hive top feeder is self-contained and you get good positive ventilation. Anytime you put something else in a hive you're acting as a moisture barrier, it actually acts like a sponge, and it actually causes more moisture. It reflects it out.
Okay, sometimes we'll see what we can do there. I do have a feeder as well.
Well, thank you, Don, very much for your question. Let's see. Joe, you got a question? Go ahead, man.
Yeah, Don, if you run an 8-frame deeps, 2 of them, and you're trying to make it more honey, should you put an entrance above the brood chamber so they can go right to the honey supers? Does that help increase productivity?
It ain't going to hurt nothing. I don't particularly like to do it myself because let's say you want to start making some comb honey. You don't want a bunch of bees in there tracking it all up. And let them come through the bottom, and they'll deposit it at the lower level.
Have you tried any of these new bees that's supposedly hygienic to mites? Have you tried that in?
There's There's no such thing. There people might make claims of this and claims of that, and I'm not going to mention any names or anything, but I had a lady bought some of those bees and told me that those was the meanest bees she ever got. But it just depends on the breeder. I mean, there could be other things in it too. It could be beekeeper error.
Yeah, well, Purdue University here in Indiana, they've got a program studying the honeybees, and they've got some that show them, picking mites off each other. I mean, that's the way they do it, and they're giving away queens and queen cells. And I don't know if it's worth trying or not.
Don't cost you nothing. Give it a try.
Yeah. Other than getting stung, Joe, you might want to invest in a veil at least. I mean, till you know.
There is always a selling deal with about anything. I've talked to a breeder that does the artificial insemination, and I mean, I was basically part of his program at one time. I'm not going to mention no names, but he does artificial insemination, and I basically said to him, will you put it in writing that that queen that you artificially inseminated will not fly out and remate with some other bees? He kind of looked at me and smiled, and he said, no. So, a lot of times people have something, they're selling you an idea that they hope is going to work. When it comes to bees, they got a mind of their own. You think you know what they're doing. Sometimes they'll show you they know a little bit more, and they're going to prove it to you. And the bees is the best teachers around. I think I know something, and then I go out and do it. One year it works, the next year totally different.
Yeah, you talking about them?
If you get some free bees, I would go try them out, set them to the side there, and see how you like them. What you like, what I like, and what maybe Steve likes is two different things.
Yeah. I used to talking about going out and remate. I had a virgin queen one time. Every time I come home at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, she was on the front of the box where she'd been out. She'd done that 4 days in a row.
Well, there might have been another queen in there too. There's no guarantee. When you're making queens, there's no guarantee. And I have people that can be successful early spring, and they'll come here and they buy in queens. So if it was all easy as everybody says it was, there would never be anybody, selling queens anymore. I mean, I put enough information out there. Even a child could make, a half blind person can make queens. You can't make vast amounts, but you could make queens. But when you're going to do it for a business, you've got to be consecutive. You've got to be able to do it on a regular basis, regularly, consistently. Not just good times here and get by and whatever you can do it.
Right. Well, that's a good point, Joe. I'm just going to mute you real quick. There you go. You already muted yourself. Thank you, sir. Just how it is with 9, 10, 12 people in here, and background noise, anything at all, just a little whisper, and these microphones will pick it up, and we can't hear what Don is saying. So I appreciate it, sir. Thank you. Let's see if we got another question here. Well, I have one. Now, I wanted to ask you, Don, one of these questions here about hives and again, I don't have a hive, so these may seem like really simple questions to you people. I'm not getting my bees till, I remember what I wanted to do. Okay, so I'm going to get bees in the spring of 2016, April approximately. They're coming out of Wisconsin, 2 nukes. The guy's an old timer like you, been doing it forever, and doesn't wear a bee suit. I see pictures of him on videos, and he's walking around the bee yard, no veil even. So I think that's the first thing. But if I was to buy package bees from you, are they slower to get started than a nuke? Is a nuke always going to be the better way to go as far as speed goes?
For you or for anybody?
Well, for me, being as a complete novice and not really understanding anything, if I'm going to bring in bees I'm willing to invest some money into it. But you mentioned the thing about genetics. I want to get some bees from this guy because they're regional, and they're in the cold and all that, and some bees from you and see what happens. Like you said,
Well,
mix them up, match them up, see what happens.
you're talking two different subjects, basically. You're talking genetics on one, and then you're
Mhm.
talking packages versus nukes. So
Okay.
uh,
I am
a lot
ignorant.
of see, people, I try to tell them, do what you can afford. A nuke is always going to be better, but I have just as many people that start with a package and actually make honey with that package. But here's the thing. The knowledge, you do a lot of research, watch a lot of videos and stuff to see different procedures how to put these packages in. When you dump that packaging, it's going in a new foundation. And if you're not doing everything pretty close to what you should be doing, there's no guarantee that that queen's gonna stay in that package. Now the nuke, it's pretty much assured you've got a better deal there because you've got brood that's sealed, you've got brood of all ages, larva stage, cap brood, and hatching brood. You've got a queen that's established there. Uh, and each frame that is sealed brood is going to give you the approximate of a 2 to 3 pound package. So you have to weigh the nuke cost against the package. And do you want to take a chance putting them in there and not having them stay? I mean, those are the things. A new beekeeper, if you can afford it, your nuke is a better buy. So uh,
So
it's it's disheartening to spend if you bought two packages, say paid $105 or $110 per package. You bought all this equipment, and from what I'm reading, some of these people got $500, $600 in a box plus a package. So there's $1,200. And if you put them in and you go back in 4 days, the hive is empty, all the bees is gone. You don't want to do bees no more. But if you put those nukes in, you basically still got the same cost for the equipment, and those bees stay, and they made you some honey. And even if you killed the queen and had to redo the queen, I mean, at least you got your foot in the door, and you said, "Well, it's a learning thing," and you're gonna, stick it out. But when you lose both of them, it's just heartening. I see people it just turns them against beekeeping.
right. Well, now, okay. Again, I don't know how many folks here have never kept bees, and I just kind of found Don because I was so confused by all the books and the websites. Like Steve said, you got all these different opinions coming in at the bee club and this and that, and I've been raising bees for 20 years. He's got 5 hives, or something like that, which is fine. I'm not knocking that, but I want to know the whole picture. How do I take okay, so I'm going to get my 5 frame nuke, and I really want to take that nuke and transfer it into 8 frame um, medium supers. Can I just open it up, move the frames? What about the bee space and all that? Is that going to cause a problem?
Well, if you're gonna put them into another box. Now you mentioned mediums, so I take it that you're gonna run your hives all mediums, or are you buying deep nuke and then you're gonna put all mediums?
Well, initially, I really, with these just the first couple, 3, 4, 5 hives, want to keep everything medium just to keep it so that, I'm going to make my own hardware. I'm going to buy a couple different things and then kind of use it as get your plans and that kind of thing. And then, build from there. And then, if this works out, I don't want, I don't want to have a bunch of nukes and a bunch of supers that are deeps and then some shallows and mediums. Just want to keep it all the same. But if
Well,
that's going
see,
to be a problem,
you just brought up a good point, and Steve has been here and he's seen people that's done this. And I tried to explain to my students the approach that you're taking. You're cutting 50% or 60% of your potential earnings off at the knees because you're going all mediums. 90% of the beekeepers want deeps. So now the guy drives up your driveway. He said, "I want 3 nukes." All you got is mediums. Mediums is good for some people. If you're going to do it as a business, now Steve is going at it as a business. And first year in, He's not just breaking even, he's actually made money. He's selling nukes, so he's propagating what he's got. I always tell my students, don't cut your money off at the knees. If you run deeps and then run a medium on top, somebody drives up there, they got a bad back, they want to buy a medium, bang, you sell the queen with the top box. Somebody comes wants a deep, you sell the queen with the bottom box. But now there's some ladies out there, some men that only want one size frame all or box all through the bee yard. That's good if you're not going to sell bees. But it's just all mediums. You're actually adding more equipment than if you was to run deeps and mediums. Because if you're going to run all mediums, it's going to take a minimum of 3 to 4 mediums, the equivalent of 1 deep and 2 mediums.
Okay, I think I'm starting to. It's kind of starting. It'll be much simpler when I go to see this guy's bee yard in April, and it's like, oh, okay, now I know what Don is talking about. So, because I don't have any bees yet, you know. I mean, go ahead, Steve.
I was just going to say too is what's going to happen is you're going to have to watch those hives because they're going to fill those frames up twice as fast as a deep. And, you know, if you're not going out there and looking at them every week, they're going to swarm a lot faster on you because they run out of space a lot faster than the deeps.
So there's a reason for varying sized equipment, not just because the bee companies want to sell you something different.
Well, that's why, what we're saying is when you're just getting started, figure out where you're wanting to go. It's like you don't plan a trip, just get in the car and say, let's go, we're going on a trip. You got to have a designation. What do you want to do? You want to do honey? Do you want to sell bees? Basically, Steve is wanting to build a business up to retire on. And I don't know what you're going to do it all on mediums. I mean, it's possible, but there's a lot of more people wanting deeps because you're going to sell to the new beekeepers. You're going to sell to commercial beekeepers. I have commercial people that come by here that do pollinating. They start in Maine, New York, work their way down to Florida. If they have 25, 30% losses, they want my stock. They want to add to their stock, so they buy nukes, deeps. So that's something you should think about ahead, just like looking at boxes and stuff. Know where you're going to go and get an idea what you want to do. Saves you money in the long run.
Right.
I think I only had one person this year request a medium nuke, and that was a woman, and she wanted something that wasn't real heavy that she could handle. But out of all the ones that I just had one request for a medium.
Yeah,
Steve. Sorry. Go ahead, Joe.
Yeah, when you order your bees from this guy in the spring, you make sure you know what you want, because if you order a deep nuke, they're not going to fit in your boxes.
Yeah, he may be. I'm gonna send him an email here when I get done, because I'm kind of the impression that it's all the frames are all the same size. It's like, well, that can't be. You know, I mean, you gotta understand, guys, and forgive me here on the chat. I literally have done nothing but read. I could not get a beekeeper here in North Dakota to give me the time of day. I mean, they were like avoiding me. You know, they didn't want to have anything to do with me. So I am doing all of this from books and looking at drawings and reading and internet, and then of course working with Don. When I'm trying to get a saw, which this is another important thing. If you guys can get an old cheap table saw, you know, you can make your own hardware, because I can run a table saw. I've got one in Arizona that I have. I wish I had brought it with me, but I didn't. You know, and I can save a lot of money that way. But when I get my first couple of hives, just the hardware and I'm sure it'll gel together, and it's like, duh. But you're right, Steve. And Joe, I got to talk to this guy and see, is he going to send me a deep? Is he going to send me a medium? What is he going to send me? Or I may end up with a box full of bees that I can't do anything with, but just set them down and call Don and say, Don, can you ship me some supers? You know,
well, that's one good beauty part of this here. I mean, you can ask things, even if you think, well, this is silly. Well, I'm not going to ask it. That is how you're going to learn things. Uh, I've got, like I said, I've got students all around here, and I have one student that quit his corporate job, 6 figures. 1 year into beekeeping is actually making more now. I have a lot of students, and they come to me. I don't put ads out there running them on a weekly basis. I have no advertising at all. They actually have to look me up and do some search to find me. But the students, I have them coming from all over the place because no one will take the time. And I got a good success rate, I think. I mean, most of the students that come here and they put the effort forward, they can make money. And I bought nukes from Steve. I bought nukes this year from James because I can't produce enough. And those nukes were sold to people in Texas. So when I say if you can't make enough bees and you can't sell them, that's baloney. A lazy beekeeper will make 2,000 to 3,000 a week. That's laziness. I mean, once you see how we do here, we're working, it's common to make 25, 30 splits a day, 7 days a week. It's not hard to sell them. Steve was up here today, and he can tell you, you come in the springtime, most of my boxes are full. Right now, we're probably running 80% empty. I got people on a regular basis coming here, and I don't spend a dime advertising. Do good work, have good bees, they sell themselves.
Yeah,
Right.
Don, I'll back you up on that. This year, I just advertised on Craigslist around my area here in Georgia, and I had people calling me left and right, and that's all I did. And I didn't give my name out. I didn't let anybody know at our bee club because there's a gentleman that, he's been doing it for years and he supplies bees. So I didn't want to encroach on any of his business. I just put it out there that I sell nukes and queens on Craigslist. And for my first year, I was blown away on the amount of business I got. And so, I mean, it's I don't have a website set up yet. I got a Facebook page, but I don't do much with it. And I didn't get any sales through that yet. But now I got repeat customers. I got customers that are referring to their friends, and just it blew me away at how simple it was. And one thing I will tell you that, you can watch all the videos, which are very helpful, but when you're able to go to a bee yard, and once Don trusts you enough after he watches you a little bit going through a beehive, and I'm sitting there and I'm going through 150, 200 nukes, where he's raising queens and he might only have 3 frames in there. And so you're looking to see if the queen's mated, she's laying eggs, but just that repetition of going through there and Don standing right there watching you. And after you put it, what did you see in that hive? Then he's asking you, he told you already what to look for. Do they got food? Do they got brood? Do they got eggs? Did you see the queen? Are they got pollen in there? And when you're new, you forget to look for all that stuff and you don't remember. But once you're going through 100 hives, 150 hives a day, and Don's standing right there and just reminding you, and what do you see? And he points out different stuff to you. It's just amazing how it sticks. And I still have to ask him questions all the time. But I mean, you just learn so much if you could come, and even if you took a 1-day class, I mean, you're so far down the road. I'm just fortunate where I live not too far where I could drive over there and whenever I want and just go through the yard and help him and just, learn. I mean, he taught us how to make queen cages. My wife's making queen cages. He taught us how to make our own nukes, 8-frame hives, or feeders, or bottoms, or tops. I mean, and I spent all winter last year. That's all I did is start building equipment. And that's what I got to get ready to do this year so I can have even more hives. But it's just he teaches you no nonsense, the easiest way, the cheapest way, and you can ask him all these questions, and he's already done it. and he'll explain why it doesn't work. And I mean, that's why it's so valuable to have Don doing this and getting the information out there, because most beekeepers who've been in the business a long time don't want to share the info for you. They want to keep it to themselves, so you can't, they're afraid you're going to encroach on their business. But like Don said, there's such a demand out there that, I mean, he teaches a lot of people around this area, and some of them just want to do it to raise bees in their backyards, and some want to get into it for the honey. And I just seen the opportunity where, right now I have a full-time job, and maybe 10 years down the road, this is extra income, But in the meanwhile, I'm learning every day. And, I was amazed in the spring when Don told me how many packages he brings up every other week. you go over his house and he has 300 packages, and they're gone in 2 days. And he goes back 2 weeks later. It's amazing.
Well, there's a lot of the videos, and Steve brought an item up there about asking them, and that actually happened. Several students was here. I had 2 beekeepers come here, said they was beekeepers for 10 and one was 15 years. I said, okay, let me watch you work a hive. I watched them work a hive, and then I let them work the next hive. And then I stopped them and I said, that other hive, what color was the queen? And one guy looks at the other guy and he says, I don't know. I said, was there a queen in that box? He absolutely opened the box, went through the motions, and couldn't remember a thing. I said, how much honey is at the top of the frame? He didn't know. I says, what color was the frames? Was they black or they brown? How much drone was on there? He didn't know. And he's been keeping bees a long time. Now, I done another video, and Steve and all my students, you can ask them. And it's no do these videos, edit stuff out that I don't want you to see. What you see is what I put up there. I go through a hive, and I can tell you, 15 seconds, I got the queen in the cage and ready to go. And when I first get a student, they look at me and they say, you can't do it. Steve and his wife are doing it right now. I mean, I teach you by step to make a living, and no one wants to do that. I take you and lead you down the road. And that's my main thing. If Steve wanted to quit his job and go into beekeeping full time, he could triple or quadruple what he's doing right now and sell everything he does. He could do tenfold and sell it. I mean, he's already got his foot in the door. The more repetition you do, the better you get at it.
Right. That's a great point, Don, and I am looking forward to, learning more and more. I know everybody else here, and I am at the bottom of the pile, really confused, like I said, with all the different, I mean, you can read them books, Don, and one guy will say 2 + 3 is 5, and another guy will say, no, it isn't, it's 7.3, and it's like, it's pretty crazy.
I hope that within the next 2 to 3 weeks, enough of my students, I'll send emails out to them, and you get 15, 20 of my students from across the United States on here, you're going to have a discussion. Believe me. Steve's seen some. He's watched each one. They got their unique way they work the hives. Jim comes up here, and he works in shorts all the time, flip-flops. I mean, everybody has their thing. I don't work with a bee suit because it's basically too hot. You can't catch queens if you're wearing gloves. So those are the things you want to look at,
Well, Don, and then again, although the people here in this chat cannot be with you in the bee yard, and they can't have you in their bee yard, the medium, of video and pictures, and I will help you with that. That's my specialty. I'm a systems administrator by trade. We can get that uploaded, and Don, you can say, well, look at that frame right there. Here's your situation. So don't hesitate, guys. If you don't have any technical background, it's not that hard. I can help you out, and we can find a way to do this. If you have materials you want to send them to donsbeechat@gmail.com, the one you already know, and I'll make sure they get uploaded, or you can upload them right here. You can actually show your desktop. I'd have to turn it on, but it's amazing what you can do with this chat software. So this is the next best thing to be in there, right, Don?
Yep.
Okay. Well, I have one final question. I don't see anybody. Joe, you got a question? You're muted, Joe. Your mic's muted or something. I can't. Can you guys hear Joe?
No.
No, I don't know, Joe. He's going to look at it real quick. Yeah. Oh well, we'll get to figure it out. And you know, Don's vision, and he'll tell you he wants to take the art and science of what he's learned and spread it. You know, you want to make more beekeepers, Don. You've told me that every time, and not just hobby keepers, which that's fine if that's what people want. You know, that's fine. But you want to make people that have the knowledge to make a real decision in a career, because that's what's best for the bees all the way around.
Well, you know what is funny? It's like Steve. He goes to another bee club, and he's only come up here like a year, and he's talking to people that's been in bee business 10, 15 years, and he'll mention things that they don't even know about. I mean, and he's got exposure here to many different things. So there's a lot of these bee clubs. I mean, they teach basic beekeeping, and that's about what they're going to do. They're not going to give their money away. And when you start showing more interest or more knowledge than what the president of the bee club or whoever's running it or their membership, they get to wonder, you know, how's a person, you know, going that far that fast? You know, it's took them years because they're doing everything the hard way. I had to do it. So that's why I'm going out of my way to make people like Steve and James. It makes me feel good when I see they're successful. It means I'm doing something right.
Right. So anybody else have a question out there? You can either type it in or raise your hand. Don Hoover, did you have a question, or are you good? You're good? No, he must be all right. Well, I have one final question. Actually, there is a question here from Willie. It sounds like you already answered it, but he was curious if do you ship your queens in the package, right? You can either ship just a straight queen, like a replacement queen, or you can ship a queen in a package, right, Don?
You can ship, but I don't ship. Now, I let some of my students ship so they can get that exposure. I have so many people coming here picking them up. I have happy customers when you hand them bees and they look at them and they're alive. But when they leave here, they're happy bees, and I take them to the post office. And by the time they go 4 or 5 days somewhere, I've got a lot of bees that are unhappy, and the customer's not happy. So, you know, it's not my fault that the post office and stuff is doing these strange things. So I've started reframing from it. The queens, they're not too bad. I still ship the queens. I used to ship nukes, but, you know, same thing. Sometimes they get lost in the mail and they leave here in good shape. And when they arrive from a post office, sometimes they don't do so good. So those are the little things to look at.
Well, one final question then. I was looking at a video the other day, Don, and you was putting a queen in a queen cage. Now, it wasn't a package. It was just, I think you were going to ship just a queen, or you were going to give it, somebody was coming to pick it up. Did you put other bees in there with that queen?
Yes.
Now, why do you do that?
Well, there are attendants. That queen is basically, you know, she's going to lay eggs, so she's got her attendants there. They're feeding her, they're taking care of her, and keeping her company, that type of thing. They got to have company in there. And when we ship them, we try to put 7 queens in there, 7 to 8 queens. My problem sometimes, I'm catching bees so fast, is my fingers, I don't feel the stingers. So if a student's watching me, they'll say, that bee stung you. I'll put an extra bee in there. Because if you're going to make a claim at the post office, they want to see 7 bees in there. if you got 4 or 5 in there and you ship them, they'll say that was part of the problem why the queen died. But most of the time when you're shipping, you got to stop and think. If it's 70, 80 degrees out there, they're in this little truck, and then the guy goes for lunch. And you've got those bees in the back, and he's having lunch, and the bees are in the back of the mail truck cooking.
Yeah, yeah, I can see and that's another reason why I am interested in regional beekeepers and helping to train regional beekeepers that can work in their own home areas, rather than trying to ship all this stuff by mail. Um, one, oh, Ed says he thought you had stingless bees. Not quite. Yeah.
Most of the time they do.
Yeah. Mr. Davis has a quick question, and then we'll wrap it up, guys. He wants to know what kind of queens do you sell. I guess he's talking about lineage, genetics.
Well, I used to sell Italians. I used to sell Russian. I used to sell Carniolan. And then I sold bees that was basically feral bees that I got out of houses or trees. But I found out that if I just lit up intermix and just basically they're a mutt bee, they do a whole lot better. If you get one type of like a Russian bee, some people can't handle the aggressiveness and they don't stay on the frames good. So I got an all-around gentle bee. It makes honey and it survives. So that's all you can hope for.
All right. Well, Joe has a goodbye question. What kind of box do you use to sell nukes, Don?
I'll use any kind of free wood I can get. If I sold a nuke as a shipping box, I charge $25 for a plywood box, or just like 3/4 board on the ends and 1/4 inch paneling on the sides. Make it as cheap as possible. I don't like to ship in cardboard.
That sounds great, Don. Yeah, cardboard frankly scares me. Steve, thank you so much for coming by today and helping Don out here, and everybody else, have a great evening. And Don, we need to talk. We don't have to do it right now. We'll talk later this week about some new materials and whatever that we might be bringing in next week. I'll get a hold of you like Monday or Tuesday.
Okay.
All right. Sounds great, guys. Thank you.
All right. Appreciate everybody showing up and all the questions. Get your thinking caps on and try to stump the teacher.
Good night, everybody.
Night, everybody.